Good evening and welcome. Here is today's news wrap and updates. It was a day that forever changed America and the world and unites the international community in the fight against global terrorists. Today, President Biden, Vice President Kamala Harris, former U.S. presidents, as well as federal, state, and local elected officials gathered at the 9/11 Memorial and Museum site in New York City to commemorate the 23rd anniversary of the 9/11 terrorist attack on American soil, as well as honor the thousands of lives that were lost in that tragic event on that day, as well as events that have followed, including American soldiers that died in Iraq fighting against terrorists. As President Biden said in his remarks today, in a statement earlier this morning, our nation comes together on this day to renew our sacred vow to never forget. Vice President Kamala Harris also in a statement said on September 11, 2001, terrorists sought to attack and destroy our way of life, our democracy, our freedom, and everything that we hold dear as Americans. In that endeavor, they failed. In the days that followed, we were all reminded that unity is possible in America. The president and the vice president have, after the event, the ceremony at the memorial, at the 9/11 memorial in New York, traveled to Pennsylvania, as we reported yesterday. They traveled to Pennsylvania and also to Pentagon to pay tributes again to the lives that were lost on that day. The president returned to the White House this evening, and tomorrow we participate in events honoring, marking the 30th anniversary of the violence, the bill that is signed that is sponsored as senator to protect women against domestic violence. Moving to another news. Yesterday was the presidential debate between Vice President Kamala Harris and former President Donald Trump, and Americans and people around the world tune in to watch the presidential debate, from the economic to immigration to abortion to foreign policy. The two nominees laid out their policy agenda, their respective visions for America. But how far during the 90 minutes debate, while they talk about their respective policy, they offer very little new details on their policy agenda. As we also reported yesterday, we spoke to some voters, and some of the issues that the American voters that we talked to yesterday that were top issue were discussed during that debate yesterday. Issue like immigration, issue like the U.S. economic, and as well as U.S. leadership in the world. Vice President Kamala Harris, who is the Democratic nominee, touts opportunity economic agenda that she said we improve the lives of America, the middle class America as well as working class America, by providing tax breaks for small businesses, as well as help owners and parents raising children, that she will provide financial assistance. She will provide, through her opportunity economic agenda, she will provide $6,000 to new parents, as well as parents raising kids. And she said there will be tax break for small businesses, as well as $25,000 for new home buyers. So the former president, President Donald Trump, who is the Republican nominee, also touted his economic agenda and some of his agenda previous agenda while he was in office. It's how the China tariff that he implemented while in office, and also he reiterated one of his claims that he created one of the greatest economic in the world and in American history during his presidency. But again, as I said, with his economic agenda, the former president have said he will provide tax break to corporate America. Vice President Kamala Harris called out the former president on his relationship with dictators around the world, with President Putin and the North Korea president, and also mentioned his criminal charges that against the former president. On the other hand, the former president tried to pin the immigration issue, the American immigration issue, on the vice president under the Biden-Harris administration. That she's been working with the President Joe Biden in the last 3.5 years, and that they haven't, make progress on address the U.S. immigration issue. So these are some of the policies that when we talked to voters yesterday, that they mentioned at top of their mind, as well as America democracy. So we continue to watch closely between now and November, and we will be providing you more updates on the two candidates as they continue to provide additional details on their policy agenda. So moving to another story, we are moving now to Africa. The U.S. today announced that it will provide, through its USAID, announced that it will provide $2 million humanitarian assistance, a new $2 million humanitarian assistance to Chad to support the efforts of people that are affected by flood in the country. So, and speaking of flood, hundreds of people have died in Nigeria due to the flood in Maiduguri. The federal government as well as the state governments are both working together and working with international partners to address that crisis in Nigeria. And again, staying with Nigeria, the U.S. and Nigeria today in Washington D.C. host their first inaugural energy strategic cooperation, and today in Washington D.C. the energy dialogue with the way that is underway today and tomorrow, and is a bilateral energy cooperation with the aim to work together to provide opportunity to expand energy service and delivery to people, to Nigerians, as well as decarbonation and energy acceleration. This dialogue built on Secretary Blinken's visit to Nigeria, as well as other senior administration officials from the State Department visit under the Biden-Harris administration visit to Nigeria, the U.S.-Nigeria bilateral relationship, where they pledged that they will provide 75 million technical assistance to Nigeria over 5 years to improve delivery and sustainability of electricity in Nigeria. As our audience might remember, we interviewed a group of Nigerians a few months ago, earlier in the summer, and one of the things when I asked them that what can the government do to improve, what are some of the top issues that the government can do to improve the life of Nigeria, and the number one thing that they mention is energy. Provide electricity for everyone improve access to electricity in Nigeria, sustainable electricity in Nigeria. It's also launched the Clean Energy Demand Initiative under the bilateral relationship between the US and Nigeria. And another event that we mentioned that is taking place this month is the UN General Assembly, and today the new earlier this week the new UN General Assembly President, the former Cameroon Prime Minister Philip Nyang, was inaugurated earlier this week. Take up the his seat, begin his term on September 10th, yesterday, this week, and the UN General Assembly, some of the high-level talk that will take place later on this month. Some of the events have already kicked off yesterday. So this wrap up our news for today. And tomorrow, as I mentioned, the president will host an event at the White House tomorrow evening, and we will be providing you additional details on that as well. And as we also mentioned, the First Lady, Dr. Jill Biden, will travel to Montgomery, Alabama on Friday. Again, we will bring more updates on that. Lastly, before we go, the US and Nigeria also hold strategic talk discussion on artificial intelligence to partner together to work on AI projects in between the two countries to improve the life of their citizens. So this wrap up our news for today for September 11, 2024. And now I want to thank you very much for watching, and I will see you tomorrow. I'm Kemi Oshukoya. Have a good evening.